Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know the drill. We're taking a look at some recent current affairs and figuring out how they connect to your UPSC prep.
Exactly. It's about going beyond just the headlines and understanding the bigger picture.
Okay, so let's jump right in. I was reading about this tiny bird, the little bunting. It was spotted in Rajasthan, which isn't its usual hangout spot. Pretty cool, right?
Definitely. It's
Okay.
actually a big deal for bird watchers because the little bunting is a migratory bird, and this sighting was unexpected.
So a little detour for this tiny traveler. But what does it mean for a UPSC aspirant?
Well, think about it this way. It raises questions about changing migration patterns, the impact of climate change, and how ecosystems are all connected. For your exam, you can link this to topics like biodiversity conservation, environmental challenges, and even the importance of scientific observation.
Okay, so it's not just a cute bird story. It's a window into some serious environmental issues. I get it. Now, switching gears completely, let's talk about the Golan Heights. It's been in the news again because Israel is planning to increase the population there.
Ah, the Golan Heights. It's a strategically important plateau overlooking the Jordan River and the Sea of Galilee. It was part of Syria until 1967, but Israel captured it during the Six-Day War and later annexed it.
And that's created a lot of tension, right? Many countries don't recognize Israel's claim to the Golan Heights. So how does a UPSC aspirant connect this to their prep?
Think about it in terms of geography influencing geopolitics. You've got resource control, territorial disputes, and strategic positioning all playing a role. For your exam, you can link this to India's own border, disputes the role of international law, and how conflicts shape global power dynamics.
Okay, that's a good analogy. Always helps to see the connections.
Hmm.
Now let's zoom in on India. There's a new government scheme called the Jalvahak scheme. What's all the buzz about?
Well, simply put, this scheme is about making better use of India's vast network of rivers and canals. The government wants to incentivize businesses to use waterways like the Ganga and Brahmaputra for transporting goods.
So less traffic on the roads, more goods flowing smoothly. Sounds good.
Uh,
But how does this fit into the bigger picture for a UPSC aspirant?
Think about the potential benefits. Improved logistics can boost trade, connect remote areas, and even have positive environmental impacts by reducing reliance on road transport. For your exam, you can connect this to sustainable development infrastructure planning and even the historical significance of India's river systems.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be connected in some way. Okay, ready for another topic?
Bring it on.
All right, let's talk about the Khiamniungan tribe. They were in the news recently because of a bit of a mishap.
Yeah, the Nagaland Tourism Department had to apologize for leaving the Khiamniungan tribe off a heritage guide map. It sparked some controversy, highlighting the need for cultural sensitivity.
I see. So it's not just a geographical oversight. It's about respecting and representing diverse communities.
Exactly. And for a UPSC aspirant, think about the historical context of tribal communities in India, their struggles for recognition, and the constitutional provisions for their protection. This incident reflects those complexities.
Right. So it's about understanding the nuances of tribal rights, cultural diversity, and the challenges of governance in a diverse nation. Now, I want to shift gears to something that might sound a bit technical, but it popped up in a recent Supreme Court case, so I know it's important. The Henderson Doctrine. Have you heard of it?
Of course, the Henderson Doctrine is a legal principle that aims to prevent repetitive litigation. Basically, it says that you can't keep bringing up the same issues in separate lawsuits if they could have been dealt with in a previous case.
So it's about bringing all your arguments to the table at once and making the legal process more efficient. But for someone preparing for the UPSC, how does this fit in?
It's about understanding the principles of our legal system and how they impact everyday life. Think about the efficiency of the judiciary, the right to a fair trial, and even the potential for misuse. You can connect this to topics like the Indian judiciary legal reforms and the balance between individual rights and the smooth functioning of the legal system.
Okay, now I see how it connects. It's not just about the doctrine itself, it's about the bigger issues it represents. Now, before we move on to our next set of topics, I have to ask about something that really caught my attention. Remember that record-breaking whale migration I mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah! How could I forget? A humpback whale swam over 13,000 kilometers from South America all the way to Africa.
It's mind-blowing. And it got me thinking beyond the wow factor. What can we learn from this incredible journey, especially for someone aiming to crack the UPSC?
It's a great question. This migration raises questions about marine ecosystems, the impact of human activities on these incredible creatures, and the importance of conservation. You can connect this directly to the UPSC syllabus, especially in areas like biodiversity, environmental issues, and international agreements related to marine life.
Wow, it really highlights how interconnected our world is. All right, before we dive into the next set of current affairs, is there anything else you want to add about the whale's journey or how it connects to the UPSC world?
I think the key takeaway is that the UPSC exam isn't just about rote learning. It's about being curious about the world around us and connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated events. And that's what we're doing here today, right?
Absolutely. And for our listeners, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this deep dive with your fellow UPSC warriors. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll unpack even more intriguing current affairs and break down their relevance to your exam journey. Stay tuned.
You know, it's all about making those connections and really getting a deeper understanding of how things work. And speaking of connections, let's head over to the Kerch Strait. It's a pretty vital waterway that's been making headlines recently.
Yeah, I remember reading about that oil spill from a Russian tanker that ran aground there. Sounded like a pretty serious situation.
Mm.
But to be honest, I need a little refresher on the geography. Where exactly is the Kerch Strait, and why is it so important?
Okay, so picture this. The Kerch Strait is like a narrow passage. It connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Azov. It's super important for shipping, especially for Russia. But here's where things get interesting. The strait is also located between mainland Russia and the Crimean Peninsula. Remember the one Russia annexed back in 2014?
Oh, right. So it's not just about geography. It's a major geopolitical hotspot. And now this oil spill adds another layer of complexity. For someone preparing for the UPSC, what's the key takeaway from this whole situation?
Think of it like this. It's a real-world example of how geography, economics, and international relations all come together. It shows how vulnerable these important waterways can be, the potential for environmental disasters, and how geopolitical tensions can have ripple effects. So for your exam, you can connect this to things like maritime security, energy security, and how international conflicts impact trade and the environment.
Wow. It's amazing how one event can be connected to so many different aspects of the UPSC syllabus. Okay, let's shift gears back to India. We were talking about the Jalvahak scheme earlier. You know, India's plan to boost cargo movement using its inland waterways. Now, I know the main goal is to improve logistics and reduce transportation costs, but is there something more to it? What kind of impact could this scheme have in the long run?
Imagine this, a network of waterways all across India carrying goods efficiently from one end of the country to the other. That's the vision behind the Jalvahak scheme. It's not just about the economics, it's about changing the way we think about transportation in India.
That sounds pretty ambitious, but how does the UPSC aspirant connect this to their exam prep? What's the broader context here?
Well, think about the history of India's rivers. For centuries, they were the main routes for trade and commerce. Now, this scheme is like reviving that tradition, but with a modern twist. For your exam, you can link this to infrastructure development, connecting different regions, and even the cultural and ecological importance of these river systems.
So it's not just about moving goods from point A to point B. It's about reconnecting with India's past and building a more sustainable future. Now, let's switch gears to something that might sound a bit technical, but it's really important for the UPSC. The National Energy Conservation Award. I saw that the Vice President of India recently gave out awards to the winners. What's so important about this award, and what does it tell us about India's focus on energy?
This award is a big deal. It recognizes the people and organizations who are leading the way in reducing energy consumption and promoting sustainability. It's a clear sign that India is serious about tackling climate change and moving towards a more energy-efficient future.
So it's not just about saving money on our electricity bills, it's about a much bigger vision. But what does this mean for someone preparing for the UPSC? How should they think about this in terms of their exam?
Think about the connection between saving energy and sustainable development. It's about reducing our carbon footprint, protecting the environment, and making sure there's enough energy for everyone in a growing population. For your exam, you can link this to climate change, mitigation, renewable energy policies, and how technology can help us use energy more efficiently.
It sounds like a whole new world to explore. Okay, let's take another quick look at tribal affairs. We talked about the Khiamniungan tribe earlier, but there's another tribe that's been in the news, the Mao Nagas.
That's right. They're known for their really unique cultural practices and traditions, and they've been in the news because of efforts to document and preserve their cultural heritage.
So we have one tribe that was accidentally left off a map and another tribe that's actively working to make sure their culture is remembered and preserved. What can a UPSC aspirant learn from these two situations?
It shows the diversity of tribal communities in India, their different challenges, and the ways they're protected by the Constitution. These situations highlight the ongoing fight for recognition, the importance of understanding and respecting different cultures, and the need for development policies that include everyone and respect the hopes and dreams of tribal communities.
It sounds like what's happening with tribal communities is a reflection of the bigger challenges and goals that India faces.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's talk about something that seems completely different from everything else we've talked about. The Santa Ana winds.
Oh, yes. Those winds that have been causing those terrible wildfires in California, it's a powerful reminder of how strong nature can be and the challenges of living in areas that are vulnerable to extreme weather.
I remember seeing those scary images on the news. But what's the connection here for someone preparing for the UPSC? Is it just about geography and disaster management?
It's about understanding how natural events, climate change, and human activities are all connected. These Santa Ana winds are a natural thing, but climate change is making them even stronger. For your exam, you can connect this to how climate change is affecting weather patterns, preparing for disasters, and the need for sustainable ways to manage our land.
It just goes to show that even things happening on the other side of the world can be relevant to the UPSC exam. It's all about seeing the bigger picture and understanding how global issues are all connected.
Exactly. And that's what makes preparing for the UPSC so challenging and so rewarding. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about developing a critical understanding of the world and our place in it.
It's like trying to put together this giant puzzle, and just when you think you've got one piece figured out, you realize it connects to something completely different.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, but there are a couple more things I want to touch on before we wrap up.
Hmm.
Let's talk about SARAT. That stands for Search and Rescue Aid Tool. Ah, yes, SARAT. It's a fantastic example of how India is using technology to help people. It was developed by INCOIS, and it uses these complex algorithms and ocean current data to predict where things, or even people who are lost at sea, might drift.
It's like having this high-tech lifeguard out there in the ocean, keeping an eye on things. I read that they just came out with a new and improved version.
Yeah.
What's so special about this upgrade, and how does all of this connect back to the UPSC syllabus?
This new version is even easier to use. It's got things like color-coded search areas, and it's available in multiple languages, so it's more accessible to local fishermen and communities. Now, for your exam, think about how this connects to disaster management, the role of technology in government, and the progress India is making in oceanographic research. It even touches on international cooperation, because this is something that could be shared with other countries that are facing similar challenges at sea.
It's really amazing how one tool can have such a big impact.
Right.
Okay, one last thing before we sign off. We talked about the Henderson Doctrine earlier, that legal principle that aims to prevent people from bringing up the same issues over and over again in different lawsuits.
Right. It's all about making the legal process more efficient and making sure everything's fair. So if someone tries to file separate lawsuits for things that could have been dealt with in the first case, this doctrine steps in. It ensures that all the relevant arguments are presented together.
So it's like saying you have to bring all your cards to the table at once.
Okay.
I get that. But for someone who's studying for the UPSC, how does this knowledge actually help them? It's not like they're going to be lawyers arguing cases in court.
It's not about being a lawyer. It's about understanding the basic principles of our legal system and how they affect everyone. Think about how the Indian judiciary works, how people can access justice, and how to balance individual rights with the need for a legal system that runs smoothly.
It's all about seeing those connections and understanding the bigger picture. It's amazing how everything we've talked about today, from whale migrations to tribal rights to legal doctrines, it all ties back to the UPSC syllabus in some way.
That's what makes preparing for the UPSC so fascinating and challenging. You're not just memorizing facts, you're learning how to think critically about the world and your place in it.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of another deep dive. We hope you found this insightful and maybe even a little bit fun. Remember, the key to acing the UPSC is not just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding the why behind the what, and connecting those dots between things that might seem totally unrelated.
Absolutely. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and never stop exploring. It's a tough journey, but the rewards are definitely worth it.
And to all our incredible listeners out there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this episode, and share it with your fellow UPSC warriors. Let's conquer this exam together. See you next time.